Good morning. Hey, Hannah. How's it going? It's been a minute.
I'm so
You
glad you're
got it.
doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's kind of needed. I didn't realize how I mean, I thought, and I mean, I do it all, but like I thought realtors just didn't like it. But I realized after this week, you're not in our local Facebook, but there's just not an accurate understanding of what it is. So, yeah. So that's kind of why I'm doing this, because it'll definitely clear up a lot for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which local
I have
Facebook
been,
group is that?
I mean the REA.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So there was a little bit of a conversation. Now, in that instance, on that conversation, I think that there was something shady going on. But I don't think that it was, I don't think that's necessarily the norm. You know what I mean? But there's been a lot of new people in that realm that are probably inexperienced that shouldn't be doing it. So that's one of the things that I'll talk about today too. So I have a feeling that some stuff is gonna upset realtors, some stuff is gonna upset wholesalers, but it is what it is. At least you'll have some clarity on what it is so that you can make better decisions and not randomly turn people into the LREC for doing things that are supposedly illegal.
Yeah.
Hi, Brandon. Yeah. Kind of funny, not funny. So how is everybody this morning?
Good.
Blowing and going?
Worried I might miss something. I do have to leave to go handle some things.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I know it's recorded on my laptop, like there's going to be a copy. So,
Good.
I guess I can send it out after, and I'll probably send you guys some other stuff too, because there might be some stuff that you're interested in. And I can because when you registered, I got everybody's email. So I should be able to send it out to everybody if, if there's things that y'all want or things that I can help with, for sure.
Perfect. Perfect.
Faux show. Let's see. I think it's about that time, but I bet, yeah, it is 11. I bet that a lot of people waited till the last minute to register, and it's taken them a minute to get in and to get in Zoom and everything else. But I can't really see how many people are in right now. Not a few. Not a few. Oop. I didn't mean to ask you to unmute, Tiffany. That was my bad.
I'm walking the hall of the office to get back to my desk, so I'm going to keep it on mute.
All good. All right. Well, it looks like we have quite a few people on. Let me stop the screen share real quick, just so I can say good morning. Oh, and now my music's going. My bad. Hold on. Okay. So this is the Real Minds meetup. I'm trying to make sure that I remember to tell you guys everything that I need to tell you guys, which I may not. So just feel free to bug me and ask questions. But yeah, so this is a meetup that we're going to have every Thursday at 11 for real broker agents typically. But because this was such a controversial topic, we decided to open it up to everybody, because I think it'll help everybody gain some understanding of what it is, what it means, and then just to make better decisions for your clients in general, because it's not something that's going to be going away. You know what I mean? And I'll explain more about why it's not something that's going to be going away. But I guess to kind of, whenever I was doing this class, it was really hard because there was a side of me that was like wanting to teach it as like a how-to, like how to wholesale, because, I know that there's a lot of people that are very interested in learning how, but it really is more of a, explanatory for agents and like how, I guess I'm trying to make it make sense for agents. So there is a little bit of how to in there, just simply because I have to explain how it's done and why, because I think if you understand the why behind why people do this, then it'll help you to make better decisions for your clients in the future, if that makes sense. So it will definitely be geared towards agents. But if this is something that you want to do, full time, or it's something that you want to consider doing, in the future, then I think that, we can probably hop on a different call for that, just because this isn't going to go into like all of the phone dialing systems that we use and things like that whenever we're doing these types of things, or where the leads come from, how to skip trace. Like that's not really going to be covered in here. It's more of like a overview understanding for realtors. So if that makes sense. So there'll be a little bit of both, but I will share my screen again. And hopefully technology will cooperate today and we'll have such a good time and everything will be easy. Okay, so, well, come on, it's already not cooperating. There we go. Okay. Well, I can't even see my own screen, so I've got to move y'all around. Hold on, here we go. All right, so I know that there's a lot of people on this call. Some people know me, some people don't. Some people have known me since the day I started real estate. I feel like since I was in real estate diapers, and then some of y'all have never met me before. So just to kind of give you an explanation of who I am and why this, why what I have to say is valid at all. Oh, by the way, the spelling on this thing is going to be terrible because this thing does not spell check, and I have like one contact. So yeah, just ignore the spelling. I swear I can spell, I just can't see. Um, that's really funny because I didn't see that last night. But anyway, so I've been a realtor for 14 years. I can go all into that, but that's, you know, good enough. I've been here a long time. I've been a broker for 8 years. I've been a house flipper for, gosh, at least 10 years. Definitely learned the hard way on the first few, made a lot of mistakes. I do wholesaling. I don't do it at a very high level necessarily, like a lot of people do that are just dialing every day for it. But I think in this industry, being in real estate and also being a real estate investor, there's a lot of room for that. And it's like when it applies and when it makes sense, that's when I do it. As a realtor, because we have, you know, a code of ethics that we also have to follow, I'm always looking out for my client, you know, so it depends on the scenario. And if the scenario doesn't fit, then I'm obviously not going to do that, right? But sometimes the scenario does fit and it just makes sense. And so that's when those, you know, opportunities come up. And then I'm a short-term rental host. I don't know if y'all probably, well, you might have been able to see, but I'm in one of my Airbnbs right now that's about to go live today. So I really have fun hopping from Airbnb and Airbnb to Airbnb to work because I get to sit in a cute little environment. And because I'm working on getting another unit finished today. But I have 10 as of now and plan to keep growing until 2026. And then I don't know, you guys might never see me again. I might be on a beach, who knows? I'm just kidding. I'm sure I'll always be doing this. This will be fun. Okie dokie, let's see if this thing will cooperate for me. Okay, so basically this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go over just a simplified overview of what wholesaling is very quickly and try to get it to make sense and click. And then I'm gonna deep dive into each part so that you can understand the why behind why some of these things are legal that you think are illegal or whatever the case may be. So we'll dive into each part and then I'll kind of go over some ways that it applies to realtors or affects realtors. And then you guys can ask me whatever questions you want. Now, being that it's going to be a lot of information very quickly, I probably will stop and make sure that you guys understand instead of waiting till the end. But it really is a very simple process. It seems complicated, but it's actually insanely simple. So hopefully it'll all make sense. If it doesn't make sense, just let me know and we will make it make sense. Okay, so what is wholesaling? Wholesaling is a real estate investment strategy in which a wholesaler obtains a contract on a property with its seller and in turn sells the contract to another investor. And so I know I posted this on Facebook the other day. This image kind of explains what it is. So instead of, I guess what I'd like for realtors to see it as, instead of seeing it as, oh, these people are marketing this property and they shouldn't be because they're not a real estate agent. First off, what we do as real estate agents is completely different from what the general public can do with houses. So a lot of the things that you think are illegal or you think are not right are really because of our realtor association and the code of ethics there and has absolutely nothing to do with this. And the reason why I want you guys to have a better understanding of this concept is because in the market that we're in a down market, if we don't start to understand these, then you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities to help your sellers and to help your buyers, because this is so what are the two people that always buy in a down market? Always cash buyer investors and first time home buyers. We know that. So if you want to be able to survive and stay afloat in this market, then you really have to understand these investment strategies a little bit better so that you can help yourself and help your client and not shoot yourself in the foot. But basically, it's like a very quick flip. It's like, I'm buying this property. I'm not holding it. I'm not flipping it. I'm just selling it to another investor very quickly. The cool thing about this process is it's also totally fine to not even exchange money, exchange hands. Like you can just be the middleman in this scenario. And it's going to be here to stay. I don't think that it'll ever be considered illegal because it's not illegal. I mean, if you weren't in real estate, if you just are, if you were just buying, real estate as an investor, then a lot of the concepts that we have had ingrained in our head from real estate, they don't apply. They really don't. So you kind of gotta, separate the two. So I'll just kind of go, does that kind of make sense that it's flipping a property without doing any work? Does that make sense so far? Yeah, okay. So some of the advantages of doing the wholesaling, or is for either the wholesaler or for the client, doesn't matter. But the wholesaler, there is a lower risk and capital requirement compared to fix and flip or buy and hold. So in this instance, the only thing that I might have to put down is a deposit. So if I'm going to go wholesale a property, I'm going to go put an offer on a property. The only thing that I might have to put down is a deposit. Whereas if I was going to keep it and flip it, then, there's a whole different process. I might, put a deposit and then pay for the house. And then we might have, $35,000 in repairs. And then we have to list it. And then we have, all of these things. So sometimes there's enough equity left in the deal that, and there are some deals where I get in and I'm like, man, it's so much work. I just really don't want to take this on. But I have another investor who can. And it's an easy thing to just wholesale it to somebody else, It's faster turnaround for profits because it can happen really, really fast. They're usually cash deals. There's typically no financing involved. No need for property management, I guess, in a buy and hold situation. And then the flexibility to work part-time or full-time, kind of like what we do. The disadvantages is to find motivated sellers, because it is hard. It's not, if this is like your only thing that you're doing, it isn't an easy thing to find. The cool thing for us is that we're already in the industry. So we do run across scenarios where this might work, for different buyers and for different sellers. And then building a strong network of buyers. Again, if this is something that you're going to do full time, then you have to have all these investors on standby. You really do. You can't just put a contract on a house and be like, okay, I'm going to go, just throw it on Facebook and pray for the best. I mean, you can. I mean, there's nothing technically wrong with that. It's not illegal or anything, but at the same time, like if you really are trying to make money doing this, then you better have some buyers in your back pocket that you better know what they're looking for before you go start putting offers on random houses, if that makes sense. And then of course, it's, negotiating and everything else, just kind of like we do, but there are some disadvantages to doing it as well. It's not as easy as you think. It is easy. It's just not as easy to get the deals. So here might be some appropriate scenarios for wholesaling, because somebody was asking some questions about, I guess, like, why would a rich person want to wholesale their house? Well, they probably don't, because it's not necessarily going to be somebody that's in this awesome scenario that has money, that doesn't need to sell, that, can list their house if they want to. They can make repairs if they want to. They can, they're in a situation where they can list. These are going to be people that are in distress. They're in a bad spot. It's going to be like people that are in pre-foreclosure. They're, maybe somebody died and they need to get rid of the house quickly because there's a mortgage, and they can't pay, like the kids can't pay it, or there's taxes due. There's some kind of financial distress. They can't make repairs, blah, blah, blah. And then, it's like distress buyer. I'm like, wait, what is that? Did I mean to do that? Oh, yeah. So, okay. Another thing too, it's not supposed to say distressed buyer. It's supposed to say distressed property, again, with not being able to see. But it basically, like a lot of these houses that we end up wholesaling, they are in such bad shape. I don't even necessarily want realtors in them because of the liability of having people in that house. They might have mold in them. It's like, people might fall through the floor. Like there's different reasons why I wouldn't necessarily want anybody in the house. It wouldn't pass inspections or appraisal or anything of that nature. Like we know that already. So it's sometimes not really something that we would want to put on the market, especially if we already know that we have a wholesaler that can buy it. Like why would I list it on the market? And then low equity is a lot of times a big reason. Like if somebody is in a tight spot and the house doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of equity in it, or not enough equity to pay for, repairs and for an agent to list it and yada, 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 then this may be another scenario that might be appropriate for wholesaling. And then houses that have sat on the market for a really long time, houses that just are not selling, houses that have gone on the market multiple times and never sold. And it could just be that there's something quirky about the house that, can't get it sold. And for an investor, an investor might not care about the quirky because they might just rent it, but so I guess to say to me, and of course, this is also an opinion of mine. It's not like illegal or not legal, but being in real estate and holding a real estate license and having to abide by some ethics, for me, it's only going to be in these types of scenarios. I'm not going to walk into a house that's in great shape and it's cute and like, oh, I'm going to wholesale this house for you. No, I'm not going to do that. Or if somebody comes to me to list their house, there's no way that I would even consider that. These are just really out of the box scenarios that are atypical for what we would list on the market. Make sense? Good? Okay. So these are the two ways that I do it. Well, really and truly, I don't do the wholesale assignment contract very much anymore because it's more complicated. It's harder. It upsets people sometimes. I typically just do the double closing because it's very easy. So I'm going to go over both of those ways. So when you come across a house that is potentially, would work for a wholesale deal, you're going to put in a contract, regular normal contract to the seller. And typically what I'll do is I'll do a longer due diligence period where it's maybe 14 to 30 days to allow time to find the buyer. And then in the additional terms and conditions, this is what we write. Buyer reserves the right to market the property for sale and reassign the contract. So for those that were unsure of how these people are marketing these properties, they have permission to market typically, and they're not actually selling the house, they're selling the contract. So that's where the difference comes in. That's why it's not the same as what we do as realtors. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that in a bit so that y'all can ask questions, but that's how we write them. So then after we get it under contract and we go and we find a buyer, this would be an assignment of real estate, the real estate agreement. So this document is what I would use if I was going to assign it to someone else. So remember I said there was two ways. This is the first way, which I typically don't like, and here's why. So it basically is assigning, if you read the verbiage on there, it's assigning the contract to the next person. And I think this was a real one from way back when. But this one, it's like we bought it and we didn't really want to do the work. And then it was like, okay, well, let's just wholesale it. Or I don't even know if we bought it. I guess we got it under contract, decided we didn't want to do the repairs. We wholesaled it to somebody else. So if you see that in the middle, that in consideration of the sum of $5,000, that is the wholesale fee. Okay. So we send all the documentation over to the title company. And in this event, there's only one settlement statement, and that sum of $5,000 is on there. The reason why I don't particularly care for this is because sometimes, depending on how you've set this up, the seller may get upset. Even though the buyer is the one paying your $5,000 fee, the seller may see this and go, well, I could have made another $5,000, So that's why I don't typically like this one. It's just, it can get sticky. And also you have to make sure that you have title companies that are very well versed on doing these types of things. There are a few in town, and if you're interested in that information, definitely ask me later. But Maison Title is one that I use pretty regularly because he works with a lot of wholesalers, and so he's pretty well versed. But we typically don't do it this way. We have, but I quit doing it when I realized how easy doing it this way is. So this is the double close. It's two standard contracts. So first I write the contract to the seller. So let's just say, for numbers sake, hypothetically, I make an offer to the seller of $100,000. And then I turn around and resell it to somebody else for $150,000. That doesn't happen, by the way. Like, it's never that big of a gap. I'm just using it for numbers sake. So when I show up for closing, it's like I go to two closings. So first I go to the closing with the seller, and we sign all the settlement, we sign the cash sale, blah, 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 blah. No real money is exchanged at this time, nothing. And then as soon as he walks out the door, the buyer comes in and I close with him. So then there's a second cash sale. I close with him. He gives the title company the check for the $150,000. And then I collect a check from the title company for my profit of $50,000. So it's no different than if I would have bought the house and held on to it for a while and then turned around and sold it again. Like, the profit is it would be the same if I had done it that way and just made the 50,000 profit that way. Of course, the issue with that is that there's more fees to me, because if I close on the house with the seller and I pay all the closing fees and whatever I have to pay and taxes, blah, 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 and then I, have to wait 2 weeks and then close with them, then there's more fees for everybody. So by just doing them back to back like that, you can do it all at one time and not have to exchange any money. Make sense so far? I can't hear. I can see you talking, but I can't. Are you trying to? Can you unmute? Yeah. Are you trying to talk to me?
No, my husband's sitting in the meeting too, so I was
Oh,
talking to him.
hey. All right.
He doesn't want to be on camera. I probably shouldn't be either because I'm talking to him. But yes, we're like having our own little commentary right here, so I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I just didn't know if you had a question. It's all
You're
good.
good. And I think I'm following. Yeah, we're like both. I stepped in a little bit late, so I think but I think I'm good.
Okay. We'll definitely
Thank you.
ask questions at the end if you have some for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, this is going a lot faster than I thought. So the myths and the concerns, these are, because whenever I posted about it and I asked, what are the things that you guys want to understand? These were all of the things that you brought up, and they're very legitimate questions, because, whenever you are looking at this scenario from the standpoint of a realtor that was trained a certain way, and that, in our heads, this is law and this is, what it's supposed to be. And then looking at this, we're like, hey, wait a minute, like, no, you can't do this. And in fact, that's not the case. So it's better to have an understanding, than to try to tell people that they're doing it wrong, because it gets a little embarrassing. Okay, so the legality of it. Wholesaling is 100% illegal. It's 100% legal. It's never going to go away. I mean, I seriously doubt that it would. I actually do think that some states, maybe like 2, have banned wholesaling, probably because they've had some major issues with people that are doing it incorrectly and causing some issues, causing problems, But I just, it's a really good investment strategy. I think that it would be a difficult battle to get it to, be taken away, because it's definitely a good option for a lot of scenarios. So it is legal, just to clear that up. The marketing. So them marketing a property, well, first off, they typically have permission. At least whenever I put it in my contract, I have permission. And then but the other part of it is, you're not selling the house when you're wholesaling. You are selling the contract. You just have permission to use the pictures of the house and everything else in order to sell the contract. But you're not selling a house, you're selling a contract. So that's where there's a lot of gray for agents, because they don't understand that concept. So I know it's frustrating and it doesn't necessarily make sense because of the way that we were taught, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. And then another question was about the disclosures. We as real estate agents are required to get disclosures. That is something that's the real estate association that makes us get disclosures. They are not required. And I had to ask that question of an attorney, because I always thought, now I never got disclosures on the wholesale, because usually they're in bad shape. I know I'm getting what I'm getting. I don't care. They don't half the time know what the condition of the house is. But the only people that are required to get disclosures are realtors, because it's required by our real estate association. A wholesaler does not have to sign, or even like the wholesale property, the seller does not have to sign the disclosures. They don't. But I know that we require them. So for your information, because you have to have them, if you are going to force a wholesaler to fill this out, the only thing that they can put is unknown for every single thing, because they cannot be legally responsible for signing the disclosures, because it's technically not their property. It's the seller's property. So the only thing that they can do is put not known. That's it. So if you need a disclosure signed by a wholesaler, you can get it, but you cannot have them sign or say that they know anything about the property. I think that was probably like the biggest takeaway from this thing, because there have been so many times where I did a wholesale And a broker was like, no, you have to have this. And I'm like, I actually don't. You have to have this. And so it, I mean, I did definitely check with an attorney to make sure that I was right on that, just because, but that's, yeah. So that is very important to know. In the event that you're ever in that scenario, wholesalers only a no. Okay. So in terms of ethics, okay, we as realtors, we have basically signed off on our, ethics, whatever. Like we as realtors have a code of ethics to abide by. Investors and wholesalers do not. They don't fit in the same box, okay? So we can't expect them to abide by the same ethics that we do. However, if you are a wholesaler yourself and you're a realtor, then I would absolutely expect that you would keep the best interest of your seller in mind. Because I know that and like in this event too, by the way, if you're a realtor and you're buying wholesale properties, it's not you and your license buying the wholesale properties, by the way. So you also need to separate the two. You're an investor. So like if I'm putting an offer on a wholesale property, it's in the name of my LLC. And anytime that you make an offer on a property, you don't have to disclose that you're a realtor. Now, when you list the property, you do, right? So you don't have to disclose that whenever you're making an offer. But still, as a realtor, you definitely should keep the seller, the best interest of the seller in mind. And here's what I mean. So like if somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I want you to list my house. And I go and I look at their house and I'm like, hey, look, I can list your house, but I really think that the better option would be to wholesale it because it's not in great condition. That's fine. But if you go to somebody's house and you're just like, I just want a wholesale commit, I just want a whole, like a wholesale profit or a wholesale fee, and I don't want to pay commission to my broker, so I'm going to try to wholesale this, then shame on you. You get what you deserve. Does that make sense? So there's only certain scenarios where I would ever even consider this as a realtor. So you just really have to keep the best interest of your seller in mind. I know that if I have a seller that's in a really bad spot, they need to sell really fast. Like say they're sick, they don't want somebody going through their house. They need the money bad. Maybe they are elderly and they need to go into long-term care. Okay. They don't have time to list the house. They don't want anybody in their house. They don't necessarily have the money to pay a full commission of 6%. They can't do the repairs. Like there are situations where this may work, where you can sell it to another investor. Or if you feel like doing it as a commission instead, I mean, that's also an option. But just, be ethical about that. And like, if you have a question about that in the future and you want to ask me, absolutely ask me. Definitely reach out. And then proof of funds. Somebody had asked about proof of funds. Is it required? No, it's never required. It's not even required for us now. Like we don't require proof of funds. But you should. There's nothing, there's nothing like, so if you get an offer presented, like as a seller, if your realtor presents an offer to you, then you don't, I mean, even if there's no proof of funds, you have every right in the world to accept it if you choose to. But as a realtor, I would absolutely, still want to get a proof of funds. And I'll kind of explain how that's possible or how you can do it. And so this is where some of the things go wrong. And this is why I think this is becoming such an issue in our industry. The biggest issue that I'm seeing right now is that a lot of these young guys are like, oh, I want to get in real estate. And the easiest way, like a lot of these wholesaling gurus and the people that they have all these courses that you can pay for and stuff like that. They'll say, the easiest way to get in real estate, and then like, they'll end up signing up for their course or whatever, or even like going on YouTube and learning how to do this very haphazardly. And they will start calling realtors because that is one of the strategies that they teach. They teach them, call realtors, like they can help you with these properties, like get connected with a realtor, which is not a bad idea for a wholesaler, especially an experienced wholesaler. But the inexperienced wholesalers, what they're doing is they're going and just making offers on properties kind of haphazardly, not really knowing what they're doing. Sometimes they're not from Louisiana. They don't even really know what the property looks like. They don't understand the market here. They don't really understand what the after repair values are. They don't understand any of that stuff. So they're making an offer and then they've got your client under contract for, you know, however long maybe the due diligence period is, right? And they just took you off the market for no reason because they don't necessarily have a book of buyers. You know, they don't really know what they're doing. Or maybe they made an offer that was too high and they can't resell it, if that all makes sense. And then a lot of times we have inexperienced realtors that don't understand the process of wholesaling. If you don't understand the process of wholesaling, don't accept an offer until you get it to somebody who does. Because then at least you can understand what the offer is and then make an informed decision or educate your seller enough to make an informed decision instead of just telling them, oh no, that's illegal. And the reason why I would not do that is because, okay, we're in a tough market right now. There's a lot of houses sitting on the market for a really long time. And if there's a wholesaler that comes along that thinks that he has a buyer, it might be in the best interest of your seller. So again, just, you know, ethically thinking about what is in the best interest of your seller. Is it worth a shot? It might be. Has it been sitting on the market 2 years with no offers? Well, shoot. What's being off the market for 2 weeks gonna do? You know what I mean? And then like the unvetted buyers. So when you're a wholesaler, you better vet your buyers. So you better get pre-approved or not even pre-approvals, just like, you know, proof of funds for cash. So don't be stupid and get a house under contract and then get a buyer under contract if you don't know he has funds. You better make sure that in buyer has funds, because you may get all the way to the closing table and then they screw you over. You're stuck sitting there with no buyer, no in buyer. That's terrifying. So don't do that. So yeah, and then rookie mistakes, just people not understanding the process and doing things that they shouldn't do. Like if you're a wholesaler and you have a house under contract, whenever you sell the contract to somebody else, that second contract, you better get a non-refundable deposit and you better get some kind of proof of funds, because otherwise you may have a buyer that is not a good buyer and you'll get stuck at the closing table like, oh crap, what do I do? And now you're responsible. So you have to do things to cover your butt as a wholesaler to make sure that you don't get in a bind or you don't get legally obligated to buy a property that you never intended to buy. So it's just all things to consider. So as a real estate agent, I think I need water. These are some things that you can do to, I mean, this is just going to help you out a ton. So if you have a listing, let's just say hypothetically, it's been sitting on the market for a year and you have a wholesaler come along. First of all, you want to vet the wholesaler. Go check him out. Look him up on Facebook. Look him up on Google. Does he have his own website? Does he have a book of buyers? You know, is he legit, or is he just some kid sitting at his computer in New Jersey trying to figure out who he can get under contract? Like, be smart about accepting these offers, right? And then ensure the proper verbiage on the contract. So if they're making an offer, number one, you know they need a little bit of time on the due diligence because they have to find a buyer. If they're not doing any kind of due diligence at all, then that's a red flag. And second, the verbiage needs to be on there for the wholesaling side, basically saying that, you know, they have the right to market and assign the contract. And then another thing is request a deposit. It does, even though it's not the end buyer, still request a deposit, because that will hold them to that due diligence period. And they know, like, if I don't get a buyer before the end of that due diligence period, I'm losing my deposit. And then here's the thing that you can do to protect yourself with the end buyer, because there's going to be an end buyer in the contract or a counter offer or whatever. Ask the buyer to get proof of funds from the end buyer during the due diligence, because they don't necessarily. So if they give you proof of funds right now, it doesn't matter, because they're not the ones that are going to end up buying the house in the end. Okay. The person that's going to be buying the house in the end is that end buyer. And that's the proof of funds that you want. So somehow, some way, put it in an addendum, put it in the contract that you need proof of funds from the end buyer during that due diligence period. And then also request that wholesaler get a non-refundable deposit from the end buyer so that the end buyer can't walk away. And what I usually do is I tell people, like, if they're going to buy from me a wholesale property, they need to do all their due diligence before they make an offer. Go through the house, get in the attic, get under the house, whatever you got to do Bring your grandma, bring your, uncle that it used to be a contractor. Don't care. Get it done before you make that offer. Because once you make that offer, there's no going back. So that end buyer cannot back out of the deal. And then tell them no daisy chains. That doesn't mean anything to you, but what it means to a wholesaler is this. If I make an offer on your property as a wholesaler, I could go wholesale it to another wholesaler, who then wholesales that to another wholesaler, who then wholesales that to another wholesaler. I have seen it here in Karen Crow on this mobile home that was awesome. And the price that they were asking, I would have bought it and renovated it. But then I realized, oh, wait, no, they already got all these wholesalers involved. And there's like a daisy chain of like 4 of them. And so the price that he was asking would have been fine. The price that the last wholesaler was asking was ridiculous. So just note that somewhere, no daisy chains. So if anybody ever, says that, that's what that means. And then if you're representing a wholesale buyer on a listing, somebody had asked about this, like as an agent, if you're representing a wholesale buyer. Well, like, you're representing the wholesaler on your, now outside of a listing, like outside of like something that's on the MLS, I wouldn't see why you would be helping a wholesaler. If you're a real estate agent, the wholesaler is going to want to buy that house direct so they can make as much money as possible. They're not going to want to pay a commission to you. So I don't think that this would ever come into play outside of a house that's on the MLS. But say you get leads on Zillow and you get a wholesaler that contacts you about a house that's not your listing. Okay, so now you're representing him as a buyer, which is fine. Make sure you vet him also before you allow him to make an offer. Make sure you vet him. Check him out. Find him on Facebook, find him on Google, find him anywhere. Find out if he has a website, find out if he has a buyer's list. Like, vet the dude before you even allow him to waste your time and put an offer on another house. And then definitely, absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, disclose the intent to the listing agent. If you don't tell a listing agent that the intent is for this house to be wholesaled and they find out later, I mean, that's on you. Whatever happens, I don't know. Maybe they'll turn you into ethics. I don't know, but you better disclose that information. I would and plus it's supposed to be on the contract anyway. And then I would absolutely communicate and cooperate throughout the process. So as things are happening, as you say, oh, he got a buyer, let them know, keep the listing agent in communication the whole time so that they understand what's happening and they're not, their seller is not panicking. And then wholesaling as a realtor. It's no different from buying investment property, honestly. There's nothing significant that you have to do outside of if you were going to buy or rent them, use the proper verbiage in your contracts. I would highly recommend using an LLC. Why? Because if there's some kind of lawsuit and your LLC is involved and not you personally, then that's going to help you look a lot better to the LREC. And then remember that that's an investment. It's not a realtor related sale. So you have to kind of divide the two. It's not the same at all. In that scenario, you have your investor hat on. You don't have your realtor hat on. And then just always keep the best interest of all parties in mind. I mean, as a real estate agent, I would kind of expect that anyway, like that you want to keep the best interest of the parties in mind, even if it is, an investment property. I just think it's the right thing to do. You can do what you want, but I think that's the best way to handle it for sure. Okay, so yeah, that was quick. That wasn't too bad. So like I said, these classes are going to be every Thursday at 11. And if you, and it's for real broker agents typically. So it's not always going to be about some investment strategy. It's going to be about, how to, time block, how to make money in this crazy market. So if that's something that you'd be interested in learning about, if you're curious about Real Broker, contact me separately and, we'll talk about that at a different time. But in the meantime, I will open it up to all the questions in the world that you might possibly have. And you can just unmute.
Hey,
it's
Teresa,
easier.
Sandra.
Hey,
Hey, honey, how you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm fixing to be at a listing appointment again. Quick question. I've done plenty of wholesale, but it was old school. The double closing, I didn't do that with the other person. They assigned it, but I didn't allow any JV in for sure.
Yeah,
But
it's so much easier.
I was always taught that you should disclose, right? You
I
should
mean,
disclose
when
that you're
you're
a licensed agent.
well, if you're making a purchase, you don't necessarily have to disclose that you're a licensed agent. However, you should. I mean, like from an ethics standpoint, I definitely think that you should. You know, they should know that you're a licensed agent because I just think it's the right thing to do. Legally in that position, you don't. Like if you go to buy a house today, you know, like it just for even for your personal home, you're going to buy a house. You don't have to disclose that you're an agent whenever you're making that purchase, right? But if you list it, you do. Now, and consider that a lot of these requirements are requirements that are required of not the LRAC, of like our real estate associations and stuff like that. So we have to go back and like decipher between the two, which I know is difficult because we're so trained a certain way that we're not, you know, we're not used to hearing those things. I do think you should, like, just for your protection, I think you should, but you don't have to. Oh, did I
Okay,
lose you?
that's probably what I'm. No, because that's probably no. It was muted while you were talking. That's probably what I'm fixing to roll up on in about 20 minutes. And I've never really done wholesaling by myself. I already had somebody in so they could assign it to the buyer. You know, buyer comes in
Good.
first, then the seller.
Yeah, smart.
So yeah, but you're talking about that double closing, which I've never done. So I know what title company over here in Baton Rouge does it,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess I'm just a little leery of it. That's all.
Oh, I mean, when you have a verified, you know, in buyer that has proof of funds and you know that they're showing up for the closing, then, you know, it's not, I know it definitely made me nervous at first too, because it was kind of suggested by the title company. And I was like, you sure? Like, you okay with doing that? Because you're issuing a check to the seller before you even get the check from the buyer. And they're like, meh, you know, I guess they have insurance for stuff like that. I have no idea. I mean, I guess that wouldn't be covered by insurance, but like they don't seem to mind. It is a little bit terrifying to me. And I
Yeah,
guess the
Yeah,
other thing, how do you do it, Brandon, when it comes to that?
I know a couple title companies in town that do it, and they close with the buyer first, and then they turn around and close with the seller 30
See, that's
minutes
safer.
later.
That's way safer. But I guess
Yeah,
this guy just, yeah.
they assure that they have the funds in escrow first, then they cut the seller a check.
Yeah. I don't know. I think my guy trusts me too much. Because it makes me nervous too. So I like that better. So listen to him. That's a better way. Close with the in buyer first, then close with the seller. Don't be crazy like me. I like living on the edge. I'm just kidding.
And as far as I know, Bradley Morrill, they are familiar with double closing like that. Security Title, Andrews Boudreaux, Maison Title. Those are title companies that can help out in transactions like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're getting a lot more well versed too. Cause I remember when I first started, there were some that were like, we don't know, you know, but I feel like everybody's pretty, you know, pretty accustomed to it now. So it's, you know, it's pretty common now, pretty normal. Yeah. What else you got?
Teresa, I don't know if you've seen the chat or if you've already addressed the questions that were in the chat. I had to step away, but they had a couple questions.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. The address is on the hot sheet today. Oh, okay. I don't know which one. I'll have to check it out. Oh, by the way, you guys, if you can't put a wholesale property that's on the MLS. That is no longer allowed. And that might have been my fault. Okay. Years ago, I had a friend that was like wanting to wholesale properties and he wanted me to list them. And so we did. I mean, it was goofy because it didn't work because it's like, you know, like at the end of the day, you're having to pay commissions and then all stuff. You know, but at some point they were like, no, we're not going to do that because it's very confusing. So yeah, don't put a wholesale anything on the MLS. Don't do that. That's not allowed. How does the seller get paid? Did they get, okay, go ahead. Go ahead, you can go.
Are you talking to BT?
Yeah,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good, girl. Listen, I have a question. We've always been, and you already know a little bit about this, so we've always been involved with investors because the hubby is the general contractor.
Mhm.
Recently, I connected with a wholesaler, first wholesaler ever. He and I are trying to develop some type of partnership where basically he wants me to do the legwork, if you will, finding the properties for him.
Mhm.
How would I work out getting compensated for that?
I've seen people do that, and a lot of times with the legwork, well, finding the properties. I mean, that's his job. Um,
Well, here's the deal. Sometimes when I find properties that are not listed on MLS, I will send them directly to our investors.
mhm.
But instead, he wants me to start sending some to him. So obviously, on the investor side, we make most of our money on the renovation side, not my commission, if you will, or whatever compensation is involved.
Mhm.
But with a wholesaler, to me, it would be fair, if I want to use that word, to whatever the compensation would be for it to be lower than if it were to be an investor, because he's going to be buying that property at a much lower amount than an investor would have.
Mhm. So I guess in this scenario, in my opinion, you could definitely be the person that puts the offer on it, and like you could be a part, like you could be a wholesaler in that scenario. Otherwise, you'll have to negotiate some kind of a way to have a fee for yourself put into the contract, or like something negotiated between you and him to be put into the contract. I have at one point, just because it was easy, wrote an offer and I put just in the extra terms and conditions, $500 wholesale fee to be paid to my LLC. And so at the closing, I got a check.
Okay.
That was it. And so it's like, I think that the title companies are very flexible with what we have going on when it comes to that stuff. So even if that's all you did was included that extra little verbiage in there, like, just say that $1,000 goes to you at closing or whatever, then that's fine. However you want to work it out, and maybe that's something
Now,
that we can talk about strategizing as far as paperwork on, like
Okay.
one-on-one. But yeah,
Okay.
I mean, you can work that out in there. But I'm thinking like, well, if you find in the properties, you should be getting the wholesale fee, not him.
I totally
Well,
agree
yeah.
with Teresa.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
Now,
can.
would I be getting the fee wearing my realtor hat or wearing my LLC hat?
LLC.
LLC.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Now, what if I were to find the property for the wholesaler? We already have the investor. So the wholesaler also needs my help because we have the pool of investors.
Mhm.
So could my fee be more because I am going to connect him with the investor, but I'm not going to connect him with the investor until I know that the deal is solid, because I
Here's
don't
what I
want to
would
give away
do.
my investor as well.
If I were you, this is what I would do, because you have the houses that he needs. He has the buyers that you need. What I would do is I would put the offer on the house, for whatever amount, and then I would wholesale the property to him. So I would have him make an offer to you for whatever amount you feel comfortable with. So let's just say we're going to use 100,000. All right. So you're putting an offer for 100,000 on this house, and say, because of the amount of work that you did trying to find this and trying to work with this person, I think $2,500 is fair in this scenario. So you're going to put the offer on the house directly with the seller for 100, and then you're going to sell it to him for 100,000,
25.
2,500. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he will make, he will, accept that offer, and then he'll go turn around and sell it. So that technically is a daisy chain, which is fine in this scenario because it's not, you're not on the MLS, you're not dealing with realtors. This is outside of that this is the investor hat. So that's what I would do, because you want to ensure that you are gonna get a paycheck. However,
Yeah.
you'll have to keep in mind that if this buyer doesn't come through with a buyer of his own by the end of due diligence, then you got to let that contract go, or else you can lose your deposit. So you're still under contract with this seller, and you are obligated to this seller with this contract. So you have your due diligence period to back out. So you, during that due diligence period, and you need to communicate with that with your buyer, like what, you know, your wholesaler, what amount of time do you need on due diligence? You know, you need to ask him that. So, but if he doesn't get it done by the end of due diligence, then you have to back out, so that you don't, one, get obligated to buy a property you didn't plan to, and two, so you can get your deposit back. So, and that.
Now, let me ask you,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, let me ask you this. In that scenario, could an extension be done where, okay, you didn't come through, but I know I have an investor that'll come through, so that I don't, you could, okay.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the seller agrees, just like any other contract, the seller still has to agree. But if you go to them at that end of the due diligence and they're like, no, then, oh, okay, bye. You know,
Okay.
but typically if they know that everything's, you know, good, and if you can show them like, hey, I have this investor, here's a, you know, proof of funds, like, yeah, they'll extend. Why not? They want to get rid of this property.
Got it. Okay, one last question, and it's the $1 million question. What I'm struggling with is lead generation for distressed properties badly. Besides, I have luck, believe it or not, with just riding around neighborhoods, just eyeing properties that obviously are in distress. But what I'm trying to focus on are successions. Like mom and pop passed away, kids inherited the house. They don't know what to do with the house. They don't even know where to start to sell the house, to find those people before they go looking for an agent to list it. That's what I want to focus on. What's the best lead generation you think for that, besides reaching out to probate attorneys and
The
asking them to
obituary.
keep me in mind? I'm just not the obituary child.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
hey, why
No.
don't you just show up at the funeral? Just show up at the funeral.
Yeah.
Gee.
No.
I'm teasing. I'm totally joking. I'm totally joking. All right. So you
That was a
can
good one.
buy, you can buy these leads. You can buy them. It's just a matter of finding a company that has good ones. I mean, basically what they do, there are people that have access to the probate leads, and you pay them to skip trace them. So they'll skip trace them, and I'll have to figure out, you know, where, I'm like, I'll have to give you some information of where I was getting it before. But they basically skip trace the names, and they try to find addresses, phone numbers of, you know, all the extended family and everything else, blah, blah, blah. So there definitely is a way to do it. But I will tell you that it's just as hard as if you were just waiting for them, you know, whenever you're in your circles in real estate, because I would buy these leads, and I even had an assistant that would call them. Okay. And we might get one interested person
Out
in
of
a whole month.
10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I know.
it's still a long game, and it's still hard, you know. So you can do it. You can absolutely do it. But you know as well as I do that if somebody knows you, then they're going to be more likely to, you know, go with you than if they don't know you. I'm trying to watch the time. Okay, we're good. But yeah, so I think personally for me, I post a lot that I buy houses, because I'm looking for houses to flip. And then also, you know, I post a lot that I buy houses, you know, for whatever, but people will send me people, or people will send me houses, you know, and I mean, it just depends on the scenario. It may be something that I can flip. It may be something that I can wholesale. And sometimes it's just not even worth my time at all. And I'm like, hey, just go talk to Brandon. Brandon will take it. And I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do, because it's like, you know, it's not necessarily worth my time, you know, like,
Definitely can talk to me.
huh? What'd you say? I'm sorry.
No, I was saying definitely come talk to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I
Okay.
get more just from being vocal about the fact that I buy houses than anything. But there are definitely lots of lead generation options. You could also run ads on Facebook or something to that effect, you know. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways, but we can talk about that more like one-on-one and I can try to help you out with
Okay.
that.
Okay. Cool deal.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of different ways that it can be done, for sure. Yeah, let me see if I can answer some more of these questions. I think Amy, you got it. Yeah, so the seller gets their money after the buyer pays, and then my crazy attorney apparently doesn't mind just letting the but I would definitely recommend doing it Brandon's way. Close with the end buyer first because it's a lot safer. Wouldn't the seller have to disclose? No, the seller does not necessarily have to disclose. Again, that is a real estate association required thing. That is a document that's required by the real estate association. That is not a document that's required by every seller. Now, do I ask for it? Yes, sometimes I do. And the reason why is because it gets them thinking. Like if I go through, like, just hypothetically, an old lady's house and she's been living there 35 years and I'm like, hey, is there anything wrong with the house that you can think of? No. Mm-mm. But then if I sit there and I'm like, hey, let's go through the disclosure. Like, do you have any electric? Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, that outlet is that, like, they start going through. So it does
Yeah.
still help, you know, so you can definitely still ask the seller to disclose. It's not going to hurt anything. It actually helps. And if they think they have to, then good. So yeah.
I guess I'm confused because I thought to sell property in the state of Louisiana, you had to disclose. That's why for sale by owners have to do disclosures. So that's where I guess I was just a little confused on that part.
I mean, I don't know. I've gotten different answers from attorneys. I really think that it's, you know, I think we were taught that way. And I thought that was the case also for a long time, but I just don't think that that's accurate. I don't. Because I mean, I buy houses all the time where the seller doesn't disclose. It's not like the attorney is sitting there waiting for the disclosure. They don't ask for the disclosure. So I really do think that it's just something that we as realtors are required to have, and it's not necessarily a requirement. But if a seller does disclose, that's going to look a lot different than you see, Annette's saying it's state law, but I have heard differently from the attorney.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because LREC
But
has it as to sell property in the state of Louisiana legally. I mean, I guess a buyer, if they wanted to back out, they could say, well, you didn't disclose, so I don't want to buy the house type thing. I don't know. I'm trying to differentiate.
It's different state to state as well. So
yeah, and I guess so, but I guess to clarify, in terms of like a wholesaler,
Right.
the wholesaler does not have to
not
disclose.
them. I mean, they don't live in the
Yeah.
house. So that's why I said would the seller have to do it versus, you know, I don't know. Okay.
I mean, I don't necessarily ask for it, you know, nobody's at the end of my wholesale deal looking for that disclosure. I do a good job during my due diligence to make sure that I go through the house and find whatever I can. And also I just like to have that information. So if I will give it to the seller because it does help me, and it helps for them to remember some of the things in their house that might not be 100%. And you'd be surprised the stuff when you start going through, they'll start remembering stuff that they didn't remember when you asked them if there was anything going on with the house, you know?
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess, you know, if you feel more comfortable getting it, get it, you know, but, I don't think
CYA type thing, if you want to do it, just kind of like CYA if you do it.
Yeah. Now, of course, and you know, there's some kind of weird scenarios that have happened with brokerages where the brokerages are demanding a disclosure from the wholesaler, and the wholesaler, yeah, and they're saying like it's required, they have to have it. And I mean, if you have to have it for real estate purposes, fine. But the wholesaler, the only thing they can put on there is unknown.
Yeah, they don't.
That's it.
It's not their property.
Right. Yeah. So that's what you would have to do on there. The contract that you're selling has a fee already on the price. So I'm just trying to go down the list. So basically, if I write a contract to a seller and I'm going to wholesale it to someone else, then basically it's like the contract to the seller is 100,000. The contract to the end buyer is 150,000. It's not that big. I'm just making it easy. So the fee is a profit. It's a profit. It's not a fee, if that makes sense. So it's like I'm buying a house and I'm reselling it right away. So it's a profit in between. And then I know you said you put a longer due diligence period, but if you for some reason can't find an end buyer, what verbiage do you use to get out of the contract? Well, it's very simple. Response to inspections. I'm choosing not to move forward. That's it. You just use like You can use a response to inspections and say that you're choosing not to move forward with the sale. That's all. You don't have to do anything extra. Question about proof of funds. All right, Rhett, go. You want to unmute yourself?
Yeah. Okay, so basically, my understanding is as a wholesaler, if you're putting an offer on a home that you intend to assign or wholesale, you still have to have the means to buy that home. So a proof of funds is what I was told is required even as the wholesaler, because if you have no means to buy that home, even though that's your intent is to assign the contract, if you are unable to or it ends due diligence, you just back out because you don't have the money, you're supposed to still have the funds.
Who tell you that?
Oh, I don't
It
even
doesn't
remember.
make sense.
Yeah, you don't. That is not, there is no law, there's no nothing. Like that's, I mean, it's probably, I mean, it could be a good idea, but I'm gonna be honest with you. 9 times out of 10, if I'm wholesaling a property, I don't have the funds. And that's part of the reason I'm wholesaling it, you know? So no,
So you
there's
just
no
make
proof of
sure
funds.
if you just make sure that you're out by the due diligence period if you
Yes.
need.
Yeah, don't mess with the seller like that. Yeah, definitely. You get out by the due diligence period, by the end, before the end. Do not go a day over. And I mean, that's a good reason to explain to the seller what you're attempting to do. Because most of the time in these scenarios, I do explain. Now, there are some times like, so sometimes we'll be buying a few houses at the same time. Okay. And my intent usually is to flip the house. It's not usually to wholesale, but I might be putting more than one offer, and I'll put that additional verbiage about wholesaling in the event that we decide that we don't want to flip one, or, you know, like maybe one of them's too much. We're just gonna, you know, sell it to somebody else, and then we'll just work on the ones that we have. But the thing that we do is we definitely find a buyer before the end of the due diligence. And if we can't, then we let the contract go so that we don't, you know, don't hold that over the seller. Because yeah, I mean, if you go past the due diligence, then you absolutely can get stuck and be forced to buy the house, you know, just like any, I mean, it's still a Louisiana purchase agreement and that's still part of it. So yeah, you definitely don't have to have it. Although most people, if you're certainly if you're not disclosing that you're wholesaling for some reason, then they would probably be looking for fund, you know, some kind of a proof of funds. I have seen people, and here's the bad part about it. It's like all these gurus that are teaching these courses and stuff, they'll say, oh, I'll give you a proof of funds. Like you can go on my website, go to, you know, gatorflipping.com / blah blah blah. You can type it in and download it. Look, don't do that. Don't do that. That's just so stupid. So yeah, so I mean, I would just get out by due diligence, you know. I don't even understand that. I don't understand how that's legal. Now that's one thing I don't understand is how legal. So the question that had come up on the RAA was that there was a guy that did not have a property under contract and he was advertising the property for sale even though he didn't have a contract. Well, that to me is there's definitely something wrong with that. If you don't have it under contract or if you don't have permission from the seller, then yeah, that is definitely not okay. You know, you definitely doing something you shouldn't be doing anyway. So I think that was the original issue with the person that was on the REA that was complaining about wholesalers, is that this particular guy was marketing the property for sale without a contract and without permission. That is not okay. So if somebody's doing that, go ahead, turn them in, turn them into the LREC. That's fine. They, you know, I mean, that's a very expensive lesson to learn, by the way. So, I mean, I would probably reach out to them first and say, hey, look, I'm just letting you know that, you know, from a realtor, that what you're doing is not good and it's not legal. So what you need to do is make sure that you have at least permission from the seller. And if they continue to do that without permission from the seller, well, that's their problem. You know, it's a very expensive lesson that they'll learn, and it's not cheap, I can assure you. You know, and
Yeah.
it's like anytime that the LREC sends you a letter that you're about to be in trouble, you're about to hire an attorney, just so you know. So it's going to be expensive. Yeah.
And Teresa, these what you were mentioning about being able to go on a site, download a proof of funds letter, blah blah. These are these hard money lenders that are doing a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And sometimes, yeah.
But yeah, that's a whole different ball of wax. Those guys are really screwing people over. I just saw something really bad happen to a girl locally that was trying to buy an investment property and using a hard money lender that didn't tell her about the, I don't know, 10,000 plus in fees that they tack on right the day before closing. So she didn't have any money left over to do the flip. So now she's stuck with a house that she can't sell. So be careful with those hard money lenders. Definitely. That's not, sometimes can be dangerous. Just make sure you have a
Yeah.
good book of buyers. I mean, there's plenty of people in town that have money, doctors, lawyers, whatever. They just want their money to go somewhere, and they know that it might do better sitting in real estate than in the stock market. So just get some good buyers, some good investors that are, have a list. Make sure that like when you have a property that you have under contract, you go down that list and you start hitting all of them up. Hey, I have this, I have this. This is like, and then the other side of it is too, make sure you know what your buyers are looking for before you put stuff under contract. Like if you know that, there's this $1 million house that's, falling apart into the river and it looks like a really cool deal, but you don't have any kind of buyer that would ever buy anything like that, don't do that. Like, like make sure that you know what your buyers, your end buyers are actually looking for. If you know what they're looking for, you use that information to go find the houses. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important parts about the strategy of wholesaling is just having that network of buyers and knowing how to find the deals for them. So I think that's the most important part, is just having, even if you're a realtor or you're just a regular investor, if you have a good amount of buyers that you know what type of properties they want, that's the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to do it.
And the last quarter is the best quarter because many investors like to dump their money in something for tax purposes as
They
well.
sure do. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, and Teresa,
Yeah.
one last question. So yeah, you buy with your LLC, you flip it, you make your money all year long. What the hell are my write-offs? We got write-offs as an agent, right? So you're buying these houses wholesale, you're making, usually mine was averaging 20 to 30,000 a flip. So you start putting that in your LLC bank account. What the hell are my write-offs? I'm trying to figure that out.
You still have so many write-offs.
Mileage.
Yeah, you have all kinds of, you can still write off a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Advertising,
but I mean,
food.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a book of buyers in case we ever have something? Heck yeah. Usually I'm the buyer. It depends what it is, but definitely send it to me. I am always looking for houses to renovate. And I'll tell you right now what my buy box is so you know what I'm looking for at any given time. I'm usually looking for something with an after repair value that's no more than $225. Why, you ask? Because first time home buyers are always buying. So if I can buy a house, I can flip it and I can sell it for no more than about $225-ish. Please don't send me stuff that's flooded and in flood zones because I can't really sell it. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, some, if it's like, really, really, really low flood insurance, but most of the time we avoid that. But that's what I'm looking for. But the other thing that a lot of wholesalers understand and know, and people that flip, we know what the repair values are too. So before you go make an offer, you might want somebody to walk through that understands how much things cost to repair. Because you might make an offer, get it under contract, and then try to sell it to me. And I'm like, whoa, that's way too much. You're going to have to go renegotiate if you want me to buy it. So if you understand how much how much some of these repairs cost, that's definitely a better ordeal too, for sure. Yeah. But I like those smaller houses, typically. Very rare that I'll do more.
Teresa, do you have specific towns that you prefer?
Oh, I love Lafayette. It's close to my house. No, but like I'm on the north side, kind of by the airport. I'm in River Oaks, so it's like I don't like to go too far because it gets to be too much work. But yeah, the closer to where I live, downtown, all that area, I like that. But I'm also not. We've done some in Karen Crow. We've done some in Scott. Like I'm also not afraid to go outside of Lafayette. It just depends on the deal. It really depends on the deal. And what I'm looking for is like houses that I know will resell very easily a lot of times. So there have been houses that we bought that were much more expensive that were like on the south side in 70508 because I knew that there would be a market for that particular type of house, So it just depends. But the easiest option is to keep it in the first time home buyer range because they're very easy to resell. There's not a whole lot of risk,
Okay.
So yeah.
And one last question. Is your brokerage, is this your your brokerage's niche market? Is this what you guys specialize in? Just out of
No,
curiosity.
so Real Broker, so I guess we have a lot of mastermind groups that include a lot of Real Broker agents. So I was at District South before, which I think a lot of y'all know, which is an awesome brokerage. And like for a boutique brokerage, they were absolutely the best. Then I started, like when I really started picking up in real estate sales, I started going to mastermind groups on like the West Coast, which is awesome because I bring all these cool ideas back that Louisiana doesn't have at all yet. But when I was in a lot of these mastermind groups, there's different people. I mean, you're like, but a lot of them are real agents. They might do something else in real estate, but they're also a real agent. So we just in Real Broker, the thing is, a lot of the people that are in this company are very high producing. Not everybody, but a good bit of them. They share with everybody. So like there's no information that's off limits. Like you don't have to be in there downline. Like one of the things that we pride ourselves on is sharing the information with all the agents so that everybody has an opportunity. But it's like I'm rubbing elbows with people that are producing at levels that I've never seen before. So like one of the first masterminds that I went to, there was a little guy there named Cody, which if any of y'all know Pace Morby, he's his like sidekick. So Cody is his sidekick. So, first time I meet Cody, he's like, yeah, I make about $200,000 a month off my Airbnbs. And, and I'm like, this dude's like 20 something. And I don't know if y'all have seen the car he drives, but it's insane. Right. So I guess it's like, it's not necessarily that we do that in particular. It's just that there's a lot of people that are doing a lot of different things investment wise in real estate, and they're sharing that information with everybody, which is what makes it so awesome. So from the time that I started Real Broker to now, I've tripled my income between like real estate sales, flipping houses, doing, we can also recruit agents. If agents are interested, then you can also get revenue share and stock and stuff like that. But then I've also, because of Cody, I started my own book of short-term rentals and Airbnb. So now I have 10. These 10 right now probably produce, I think my monthly revenue from them is about $30,000 a month. And we just plan on continuing to grow and grow and grow and grow, till 2026 is kind of the plan. So we have a number and we're shooting for it. But yeah, it's like you're just in proximity of all these people that are doing really big things, and it kind of gives you the confidence to take the leap and do these things too, if that makes any sense. So it's been a lot of fun.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Any other questions before I let you guys go? Because I got to get on to another meeting in just a little bit. Everybody's good? Let's see if there's any more in the chat. I'm really bad at checking the chat, you guys. Everybody got all their questions answered? Oh, one new message. All right. Y'all have an amazing day. Just reach out to me if you have any more specific questions, or if you're like involved in a wholesale deal and need some help, just call me, whatever, we'll figure it out. Or if y'all want to know more about the Real Broker structure, I'll be glad to show you that too. I will talk to y'all later. Bye.
Thanks, Lisa. Bye-bye.